final panel we have up here is going to address a topic that I feel is not addressed enough at most conventions I go to that are focused on apparel, especially sourcing. We talk about where you should produce your goods. We talk about the sourcing hotspots. We tell you how to do it. What we don't talk about is, well, how do I pay for this? So that's what we're going to tackle with this seminar. It's going to be a very valuable one. We're going to get started in about 5 minutes. Want to just get started now? What do you guys think? Why not? All right. I'd like to introduce Doug Hale, Trade River USA. Welcome, Doug.
Thank you. Let's hear it for Jason, because, man, what he's done at this event has been awesome. I mean, it's sort of like herding cats, but he's done an awesome job. So thank you so much, Jason.
Henry, five. Turn on.
Well, that was almost cool, and then that happened, so now I'm a little embarrassed. But thank you, Doug. It's been an honor to have all you guys here, and as always, it's great to have you, the attendees. So,
okay,
go ahead.
Thank you.
Do your thing.
All right, I'd just like to share a little bit of my background. I spent 25 years...
Doug, just really quick, hold the microphone a little closer.
A little closer, okay.
There you go.
I spent 25 years with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which is the national organization, largest business federation in the world. I was assigned to Florida because I'm bilingual, and when we went to Hialeah, you had to know what to say when they say no speak English. So I had the privilege in the 25 years that I worked for the Chamber of working with the smallest to the largest corporations in the state of Florida. My job was recruiting, resourcing, servicing those companies, providing them information that I was digesting and disseminating on everything A to Z on business, from international business to government contracting, you name it, we had information on what to do. As I spent time with the Chamber in multiple interviews that I was doing of companies, two questions kept coming up with a great deal of frequency. One of them was, of course, where can I get more business? But the other one was, where can I find the capital that I need to grow my business? And yesterday we heard a fantastic presentation about the global trends and the talk of some of the large big box retail companies and how they've gotten to the problem of being over leveraged and over capitalized. Well, on the other end, the small mid-sized businesses are really under leveraged. I don't know if that's a word. Undercapitalized. And so when I retired from the Chamber, one of the companies I had recruited, Business Finance USA, was successful in helping a lot of those companies access the capital that they needed from a variety of sources. So I come to say that I'm not the smartest guy when it comes to business, but I know a lot of smart people, and I've had the privilege of forming some strategic partnerships with those people. So on the lending side, I guess I'm supposed to push a button here, right? Nothing happened. Oh well, it'll come up sooner or later. Oh, I gotta stand here, thank you. That work? Actually, that wasn't the right one. Okay, there we go. So basically what we try to do at Business Finance is help companies across the spectrum find the right fit in terms of the capital that they need to grow their businesses. Sometimes that's conventional financing from the bank, but not everybody fits into the parameters of what the bank requires. There are also alternative methods of capitalizing your business, and we call that supply chain finance. And I'm going to introduce to you a couple of our partners at Business Finance. First is Laimi Tejada. If you'll welcome Laimi. Laimi is from Bank United. Bank United is, why don't you sit over here, or you can stand up if you want. Bank United is a very active regional bank. They are a preferred SBA lender. And so we've been able to refer some clients to them that were not really getting service with larger banks. So I don't know, do you want to say anything about what Bank United does? Okay.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure being here today. For those of you who don't know Bank United, we are the largest Florida-based commercial bank. So we really cater to the needs of small businesses, mid-size, and larger size businesses. We take the time to really understand your credit needs and come up with the best solution that can help you achieve your goals when it comes to financing or other business goals that you may have. Thank you for inviting me, Doug. It's a pleasure seeing everyone.
Thank you, Laimi. I want to introduce you to another partner. This is Chuck Brazier. Chuck is from Trade River USA. And I really want to kind of zero in on what Trade River does because it's very specialized and unique and well suited to manufacturing, distribution, import, and export. So Chuck is going to tell us a little bit about that. I'm going to move here. First of all, let me just kind of explain what we try to do when it comes to supply chain is we look at where the capital needs to be inserted along the chain. We call it from dirt to dust, and all the way from manufacturing to everything in between in retail, and that applies not only to products, but services as well. But I want to zero in today on a very particular thing that Trade River does. So Chuck's going to take over and tell us about what Trade River does. Thanks.
Thank you, Doug. Let's go ahead and have a seat. I appreciate your time and thank you for being here. You know, Doug mentioned earlier about the previous workshops yesterday and the day before, and it really opened my eyes how important this industry is, not just here in the U.S. and where we operate. We're a national company here in the U.S. and Canada, but worldwide, and how many wonderful people and great opportunities this industry has to offer as the world changes. So I gained a lot in the last 2 days sitting back and listening to the workshop and the speakers and walking around meeting people. So it's been a great opportunity to be here. And I wanted to thank Jason and everybody for this opportunity. Okay, Trade River.
There you go. Go ahead.
Hang on. Just a minute, we need the right slides up. Oh, I'm way ahead. Okay, here we go. What I wanted to do is present two parts to the presentation. The first one is talk about supply chain finance, the way we look at it with Trade River and in the world of credit. What is supply chain finance? It's a network of all the individuals, organizations, resources, activities, technology, everything that goes into involvement of making a product, producing it, and getting out to the consumer. The timeline, as we look at it, this is a very short timeline as we look at it, but the timeline in supply chain can be a lot longer. It could be months, but as our involvement, we start with the purchase order. When a buyer wants to acquire goods or services, they issue a purchase order. And then as the purchase order is sent to a supplier, the supplier assembles and specs, the goods are transported, the goods are imported, air customs, ground transportation, receiving, invoice delivery, invoice paid. This whole cycle will take anywhere from 60 days to 120 days. That's how we view it. But in reality, it could take a lot longer depending on the size and the size of the purchase order, the size of the material, and how it needs to be manufactured and shipped. This view is just taking the simple, short 120-day view of a purchase order and what happens with the buyer and the seller. Supply chain finance refers to the solution available to finance the goods or products that move through the supply chain. Key reasons why companies implement supply chain finance programs. You want to be able to maintain and improve cash flow, accelerate payments of customer invoices, deferred payments, optimize working capital, which is very important, free working capital from supply chain, utilize working capital to the company's best advantage and grow sales and revenue. Supply chain finance programs. I don't know how many of you are currently using supply chain finance, but I thought I'd just go into all the different programs that are available when it comes to supply chain finance. Purchase order financing, payment discounting, factoring, export, pre-export financing, inventory financing, reverse factoring, trade credit insurance, alternative fintech. Purchase order financing is a short-term commercial finance program to provide needed capital to pay suppliers through their production of cycle against verified purchase orders. In other words, if you're issuing purchase orders or receiving a purchase order, that purchase order can be financed through different commercial lenders. And this shows you the cycle. The purchase order is sent to the funder, the payment is sent to the supplier, the goods go to the buyer, and then the payment is exchanged to the funder. This is when the funder gets directly involved in leaning or picking up the security of the goods of the inventory that's been supported by the purchase order. Payment discount. Payment discount is offered by to the supplier, can go to the market or into the fintech world and discount their invoices, or the buyer can do the same. The discounting is very popular in today's world with fintech. There's a lot of companies that are available to acquire and offer discounts and buy on discount basis. Factoring. Factoring has been around for years. It's where if you have receivables and with credibility of your customer, you can take the receivables and discount them to a factor. Normally they advance about 80 to 85% of the value of the invoice, and if the invoice is paid on time, they'll refund the 20% holdback. And it's usually done on an annual contract. They want a full program. There's additional fees. Factoring is ultimately the buyer is obligated to pay the receivable directly to the factor. Pre-export financing is a method of providing working capital for manufacturers of manufacturing of goods contracted for export. Funder is paid out upon the shipment of goods to the buyer, and the buyer is funding from the buyer's funding source. Inventory financing. This is where a bank or a commercial lender will go in and evaluate the inventory, appraise it, advance a certain percentage of the inventory, and it's usually done on an annual contract where every month they revolve around the value of the inventory will advance a certain percentage of that inventory. It's usually around about 65% of the inventory value. Reverse factoring, in fact, reverse factoring is opposite, like it's defined, a reverse factoring, opposite of where it's where the buyer steps up and helps the seller with the credit of the buyer to obtain financing so that they can produce the goods that they want. Okay, trade insurance. Most companies, commercial lenders, will go and seek trade insurance on the companies that are reliable to pay an invoice, are the company that needs to pay the debt. And trade insurance is very popular in Europe, in Canada, South America. It's becoming more and more popular here in the US to help add security to structure certain transactions. Okay, I mentioned earlier about fintech solutions. Could you roll that video for a minute, please? Here's a short video about Trade River. That's a quick little video that we have on our website to explain what Trade River, on a high level, what we do. But FinTech, Trade River specializes in purchase order financing. Before I get into the details of Trade River, I want to explain the background so that you understand how this was developed. Because this started about 11 years ago by a group of senior commercial loan officers that specialize in international trade. And years ago, and it still is today, large trade transactions are very heavily involved in paperwork, extra fees. The banks or the lender are right in the middle of the transaction. And the group that started Trade River wanted to simplify that. So they invested and hired software people to develop this platform that we'll go into in just a minute. And it took about 2 years. We kicked off the platform and our lending capabilities in the UK about 6 years ago. And here in the US, we started about 4.5 years ago. Here in the US, we work with mid-size, small to mid-size companies that are located anywhere in the US and Canada. Our STEP platform, that's what we call our software, is a paperless solution that involves the buyer and seller to transact and fund transactions through the supply chain. Trade River transacts traditional supply chain finance programs by giving control back to the buyer and the seller. We get completely out of the middle. It's an unsecured facility with no additional collateral. So that's completely opposite of what the normal purchase order transaction are all about, where there's heavily secured with different fees. Trade River does not get involved in trying to file UCCs or take inventory as control for security. It's a win-win solution for a buyer and seller. Cost and risk are lower in the supply chain. Working capital improves for both parties. So both parties can increase cash flow. Sales on the supplier side will grow. The sell on the buyer side can grow. And the buy process is much simpler. And the credit risk is taken out. That would be our risk. The process to compare the traditional trade finance process to Trade River is that we're a seamless, secured online process compared to a complex process with multiple third-party involvement. Significant documentation. We have paperless documents. It's all done online. Our clients only sign a document once, and then everything else is certified on the platform. It's secured. A lot of trade finance is secured by letters of credit, liens, or product and security by the product. We're an unsecured lender. The buyer decides when to release the funds, and it's 100% non-recourse to the supplier. Fees frees up working capital and allows the buyer to be in control of the relationship. On the traditional side, payment, working capital is required, investments are required, a longer timeline with multiple approval process on the other side. So here's a real good comparison of what Trade River is trying to innovate and bring into this century on a very fast process. We have clients that will issue a purchase order to China or Africa for coffee, South America, anywhere in the world, and that transaction can be done in 30 minutes. And it can be 24/7. We have one client that actually will do the transaction while he's traveling on his iPhone. So it's a very unique process that we offer. Okay, that's Trade River. That's a quick walkthrough about trade finance. I'll open up to any questions, Doug.
Yeah, just any of you have questions for Chuck, myself, or Limey? Anything at all regarding financing, raising capital for your business? Feel free to quiz us. Okay? For you talking about for Trade River or there? As far as a minimum, I mean, you have a minimum at the bank, Limey?
At the bank, we really look at your business and what the cash flow is, and based on that, we come up with an amount. So there's really no minimum that's set in stone. We just work to understand where you are, what you need now and in the future.
Yeah, I can say that too for the other credit facilities we represent. These are two. We have a number of others, so there really is no limit as to a minimum. With Trade River, there may be some requirements.
We look at our clients financially and we approve them according to their financial statements. Our minimum approval line is $100,000. Our average is $400,000, but our average takedown off the line is $85,000. So our clients can issue a purchase order for $85,000 or $50,000, and that would be one transaction, and have headroom still left on their revolving line with us to do other transactions. So.
Anybody else? Okay.
I'm coming over there. Sorry, we're having a mic issue.
Hi there. What does Trade River charge?
Okay, great question. What we do, we don't have any extra fees. We have one transactional fee. And it's based on two assumptions. It's based on how much our client, the buyer, needs to pull off the line and how long he wants to use it. He can pick any due date from 30 to 120 days. So we have some clients at 99 days, some at 71. But once they've decided those two assumptions, our transaction fee is reflected in a dollar amount. It averages, if a client pulls down 100,000 for 120 days, it's going to average about 1.65% per month. But it will vary according to those two assumptions. When we approve a client, they receive a term letter with the daily per diem. And that daily per diem will shift on those two assumptions. It's all automated in the platform. But they'll see the exact dollar amount so they can do a what if to their gross margins and the cost of doing it.
Let me just add to that, because we've referred a number of clients to Trade River, and when you're buying from a supplier or manufacturer, we found if that buyer is now a cash buyer, they're able to negotiate better pricing structure or discounts. And so those discounts are going to offset to some degree the cost of the use of the money. In the case of one client that we have, they, a rather sizable company, they prepaid their health insurance for the year. And the savings that they enjoyed was more than the cost of using the money on the Trade River platform. So it just depends on how you're evaluating the cost.
Let me add to what the platform is all about. The platform is automated every step in the supply chain. The first step, as we recognize it, is a purchase order. And that our buyer will put in the purchase order. There's a drop-down box where it has his suppliers that have agreed to be on the platform. And as soon as he's completed the step one, the purchase order, it is emailed directly to the supplier at any time. It doesn't matter, 24/7. And then they go through their negotiations. The second step is who pays the fee. Because we've had a lot of buyers, they wanted us to add this step because they've negotiated discounts. Because they've had such good relationships with their suppliers that they're willing now to draw down 100% of the value of that purchase order and pay up front before the goods even leave China. And then the manufacturer has agreed to pick up the fee, or they can split it. And then they go through the steps of shipping, receiving, inspection. They can have an inspection period as long as they want to make sure the goods is what they want. If it's prepaid, they don't do that. The inspection period is 1 day. And then the obligation to pay us is the last step. And that signals us to go ahead and wire the money. Okay. So it's a very unique platform. Our website has a lot of good information on it. Any other questions?
Any other questions? Raise your hand. All right, gentlemen, are you going to be around afterwards for a little
Yes.
bit? If anybody wanted to go and speak with you personally, okay. So stage left, our panelists will be over there if you wanted to ask them any questions. All right, thank you so much, you guys.